has a TV show that's on every 2 weeks on the internet, and this is being recorded right now from what I understand. Jeri Ellsworth, she's done similar things on the Commodore side. She designed the C1 computer, which was an improvement, enhanced version of the Commodore 64. A few years later, came out with the C64 Direct-to-TV, a joystick with 30 games in it. It's a Commodore 64 and a chip that plugs into your TV. And that sold really well at Christmas a few years ago. Picture. And Jeri also operates around about 50 pinball machines. So, and they're both big pinball advocates and competitors, fighters, all that stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, fight!
While we talk, we're just talking about our own background. So we came up with a schedule and a plan of attack whilst we were walking up the stairs.
All of 20 seconds.
Yes, we walked a little slowly though to make sure we had lots of detail for you. So maybe we'll just start with our own backgrounds and then we'll bring it up into pinball, what we're working on now, and then at the end we'll spend about 15 minutes or 14, approximately, whatever, answering your questions. So Jeri, I will let you start.
Oh, well, thanks. So my background's a little strange. I was kind of a rebel child and picked on in school, and then I ended up dropping out of school and started building race cars. And I did that for about 4 years and racing them also. And from there, never went back to school. I opened a computer store with a friend, and then I was so rough around the edges at that time, doing my whole goth and hating the whole world thing. That partnership didn't work out, and
the nose ring holes have healed well.
Well, you know, I wasn't into piercings. I'm glad there weren't tattoos. Weren't as popular then, or I'd probably be like, all over my face and everywhere.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So then I opened a chain of computer stores to put, or I opened another store to put him out of business, and it worked. And then did the computer stores for a while. The entire time I was into electronics, hobby electronics. Computer stores did really well through the 90s, and then they failed when e-machines came out and they started selling these $300 PCs. So my margins that used to be like $300-400 ended up being more like $75, and then I couldn't pay my employees, and the whole thing just collapsed. From there, I took kind of a gutsy move. I was a little scary, but I decided to teach myself chip design. FPGAs, these programmable chips, had become affordable, and the tools to use them had become affordable at this time. So I kind of locked myself in a room and started teaching myself chip design, and I built all these boards, a lot of them based around Commodore 64 because I was very familiar with it from when I was a kid. And with these boards, I was able to go show clients that I could do video, sound, CPUs, and all these components to build a system on a chip. This is about the time that you started doing your first hack, right? In 2000?
Yes, that was the same year.
Yes. Crazy.
See, what I can never understand with you is, I could never understand the transition from stock car building to chip design. I mean, that's kind of like, right? That's like a weird...
Well, there was the computer stores in there. That gave me a little bit of time to get over, like, my chip on my shoulder.
Okay, well, here's what I want to know. So were you like in the movie Flashdance, you know, where you were a welder by day and then you were a chip designer by night?
Almost. I just did a montage on YouTube with, like, the whole Flashdance, or...
Oh, yeah, and then she's, like, working out and stuff?
Spandex and
Did you have leg warmers? I didn't see in the video.
No, I couldn't find leg warmers. You know those went out of style and they're hard to find?
You should have eBayed that, because that would have made the video even better than it already was.
Yeah. All right, so to finish off my story, in 2004, I had been just kind of dragging along in my career, not really getting big gigs at all, just enough to keep myself alive. And a company contacted me and said, well, we saw all this Commodore stuff that you're doing. We want to make a toy based on Commodore 64. I'm like, well, okay, fine, I can do that. And they gave me like this very short deadline to make this Commodore 64 on a chip. It was like 5 or 6 months. And the code that I'd written to show the video and all this other stuff that was kind of based on Commodore 64 was really hacky code. It was just as fast as I could do it, and it wasn't really the quality that you could turn into a chip. So it was really intense. Me and like 3 other programmers, Rob and Adrian, I'm spacing it. Anyway, they're here at the conference, We worked day and night for 6 months, put this thing together. It was successful. It was hackable, where you could open it up and you could hook a disk drive and a keyboard up to it and download your own games into it. And they sold a bazillion of them. And then that kind of launched my career. New York Times ran an article. And from there, I was able to launchpad from there the rest of my career, doing lots of games and chips and crazy YouTube videos. So that's my background.
Nice. Okay, so we're up to date then?
I think so.
Okay, my background was I wasn't into the goth scene or anything, but I guess I was a little geeky. So yeah, but once I got picked on when I was younger. See, what happened was when my mom got remarried, we had to move out into the country. So I was actually one of the cool kids for a while, but then I left and came back. Then I wasn't cool.
I don't like cool kids.
But then I wasn't cool. I came an outcast geek, and it wasn't until at least my junior year I got cool again. Right?
What, you were cool again?
I was a little cool.
How many people were picked on? Only 3. All right, only 3 people.
But the thing is, when you're like 5'8" and have red hair, you have to be funny. So that's how I got cool. Right, and if you're not a millionaire, right? So that you're not going to find like a 6'4" doctor that's funny, for instance. Anyway, so that was my story, and then I was a graphic artist originally, and I was into electronics when I was a kid. I had an Atari 800, which I'm not going to trash talk and say it's superior to the Commodore because I know it isn't. But I was into that, but then I wasted a ton of my life on independent film, which I wish I hadn't done. Yeah, I know people.
No, I've seen some of your stuff. It's great.
Well, I guess looking back,
BC way.
Looking back now, I guess that when we started the Ben Heck show, that experience, I was able to boom, I knew exactly what to do for the show. I mean, I can edit it, and I can actually edit completely hammered. It's amazing. That's the only thing I can do completely hammered. I mean, the only thing. But so yeah, I had the video background, but I wish I would have spent more time. If I could do my life over, I would have just stuck with electronics. When I was the Radio Shack kit with the springs. I know you had.
Me too.
Yes,
Me too.
Easy to get.
I stole it from my brother.
When did you first get your first Commodore?
Oh, I don't know. I was probably 7 or so, or 8.
When did you open up the tree and there's like a Super 8, Super 8 had sounds. So it was like, right?
No, I actually, I saw that the Commodore was in the house before I actually got it because my dad set it up in his room and hooked it to his TV in his bedroom to try to figure out how it worked. So I'd sneak in there and play with it. So he had it for a month. It was killing me.
A friend of mine got Super Contra for Christmas in 1990, and he had snuck out the cartridge from he'd beaten the game by Christmas. And then he kept returning it into the package like Rumpelstiltskin or something. I was 11 when I got my Atari, and so I never got past BASIC, which is why I'm not off-put by that wacky spin language, because I'm not a very good programmer.
Color language.
Yeah. Spin, it's Pascal and BASIC, they're at the bar one night, it's like, hey, it was like last call. They go home. 8 years later, spin, grows up as this little, bastard language. That's not too bad of a word. Well, I think it's even in the Bible. You can say that word.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so my background was in that, and I was a graphic artist, and that's what I did, and I think I did that I was 22 or whatever. But then around 2000, I was making movies and I was sick of it. I'm like, this is stupid. I gotta do something else. I'm gonna do electronics. And I was a big fan of Atari as a kid. So I'm like, okay, actually I'll tell you the actual story. I was at work and we had one of those stupid iOmega tape backup drives, right, that we needed to the computer, and that thing was made a fail. So I was on tech support for about an hour with them, and I was doodling. I'm like, I thought Atari, drawing on a little notepad, maybe I could rip one up and make it portable. And I had, some CNC experience at computer numerical control machines that route parts. And so for a couple months, I just fiddled around with that, and all my electronics, whatever skills I had, completely atrophied at that point. I think I could solder. I wasn't even using desoldering irons. It was just awful.
Those old Radio Shack pencil irons, the ones that the tips would just erode away.
Oh, I still use those, believe it or not. You were at my shop.
I know, he does. It's true.
Okay, so
he has this really nice. His sponsor gives him all this great equipment, and he grabs this crusty old soldering iron.
Yeah, I have a shop bot, but then I have a crappy $77 Radio Shack iron. But to finish up my story, so I did that. I built it and then whatever. I made it look really nice because I'm a big fan. I didn't think anyone even cared about classic gaming at this time. I was like 23 or 24 at this time. And several months later, I put it on the internet. I just had like a GeoCities site, and then all this interest came, and I couldn't believe it. Then I was getting emails from like, people from back in the day. I'm like, wow, David Crane emailed me. I was so amazed. And then so I just started making more and more. And
did you go on TV because of that?
TV?
Tonight Show or something?
Yeah, Jay Leno came out with this shit like, tonight we got a really big show about Ben Heckendorn. It's going to be Jennifer Aniston, Ben Heckendorn, and J Lo. Yeah, I was backstage with J Lo and asked her. I was like, "How's it going?" And she was like, "I'm okay." Wait, no, I was on like G4 and Spike and Tech TV before it became G4. I'm just like that.
I had the impression it was like something big, but no. Sorry.
Oh, you're trying to be mean.
Well, that's as mean as I get.
Oh, well,
and G4 is not real TV, is it?
Well, that's when you said TV and cable are two different things.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, though. I mean, people talk about the death of print and it will die, but when you get me in magazines and stuff, that impresses people, because that's actually I think it was Jay Leno who said you're not famous until your parents have heard of you.
Okay.
Right. So if you can be in Popular Mechanics or something like, oh, that's my son or whatever, right? So anyway, around 2004, I wrote a book, and at the same time, I'm like, I'm sick of doing whatever job I was doing. I'm a graphic artist. Oh, actually, I used to work for Culver's Restaurants. I would do all the menu layouts. That was what I did. And I always tried to get a free, I had this envision of a Culver's card. I thought there'd be a magical card for unlimited food I tried to get from corporate. It didn't exist. But I'll tell you a funny joke. We had yellow all over the board, right? And what I did was I had it at 42% opacity as a homage to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I put an Easter egg in the menu board system for that chain of restaurants. So anyway, in 2004, I just, is that a Culver card? Do you get free, wait, you're not Craig Culver. You kind of look a little bit like him though. You could be in the TV movie. I started my empire. Anyway, so then I wrote a book, and then I basically never got around to working for the man again because I just kept getting continual projects in it. And I'm not a chip designer like Jeri. I'm more of an industrial designer, so I do a lot of physical prototypes, proof of concepts, and shells and cases. And just finished something that's going into Walmart. I think it's called Celevision. I think they got something from Centrum and Nexus, so we did about 1 million of those. Oh, you'll like this story. So we did a prototype for this, right? And how does this work? I built a prototype. They sent it to China so China could copy it to make for manufacturing. But then they had a show, so I had to make a prototype based off the prototype China made off my prototype.
Okay.
A representation of that, it was ridiculous. So I just added like tons of labor on because I was mad.
Yeah. Lucky you.
He's like, oh, I need this. It has to be perfect, and I have to have it Tuesday. I'm like, dude, good, fast, cheap, pick two.
Oh man.
Oh, we got stories like that.
Oh yeah, the China stories. It's crazy the stuff that comes out of China. All these different toys I design, they're always trying to cost reduce things, but they don't tell you because the toy companies are these like big monolithic companies based out of New York or LA, and they don't want to deal with all these details. So they just pass it off to a factory, and they're like, we want product on the store shelf, on that boat and onto the store shelf. So it's just left for the designers to fight with China to make sure everything's in there. I had a design that we put a lot of money into it, like $250,000 worth of chips untested. They went through the production line, and I got word that they didn't work when they made it to China. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to have to run to Mexico and hide from these really intense New York toy guys.
Dog the bounty hunter would have come after you.
Yeah, maybe.
But he would have given you a cigarette and converted you to God or something. Anyway.
So anyway, they put me on a plane to China. I get over there and they removed just 50% of the capacitors out of the design. So just took them all out. They're like, well, your prototype worked. I'm like, well, the prototype didn't even use the same chip that. Oh, I thought no. I mean that's it. They just took everything out, and it happened over and over again. And they'll.
Let your hatred flow. Do what must be done.
I'm pretty good at doing Emperor impressions from Star Wars. What line would you like to hear? Come on. No? All right. Let's move on.
I'm afraid the station will be totally operational by the time your friends arrive. I look like a frog. I'll be here all week. Try the veal.
All right, now where do we go from there?
I don't know where to go. Okay, so that's our background. So I guess, I can tell you the first time I heard about you.
Oh.
I don't know when the first time you heard about me, but probably just when I was stalking you, maybe?
Yeah.
What's up? What do you see down there?
No, I was just trying to think of when I first heard of you. It was probably, I don't know, screening orders I had to get for someone.
Well, I remember the story with Jerry. So I was at Radio Shack one day, buying my usual supply of crappy soldering iron tips. And I saw it was the Hummer DTV.
The Hummer drunk racing.
Yes, it was some sort of game. And I had heard that there was a Commodore on a chip inside of it, right? So I bought it. It was like, it's pretty cheap, right? Because, the Chinese had removed all components, and it was actually just a shell with a magical ghost inside because that was the cheapest thing they could afford. Economies of scale. Isn't it often the packaging is more expensive than the electronics a lot
It's
of
at
times?
least equivalent. Yeah, they calculate out, like a $19 toy has $2 max of electronics in it, and then everything else is logistics, plastics, and packaging.
So I brought this thing home and I cracked it open. So I'm like, okay, where are the headers? How do we hook this up? And I looked it up and I'm like, what was it? It's like, oh, this was designed by Jeri Ellsworth. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was looking up Jeri Ellsworth, and I'm like, wow, this person's young, because they were like, you probably were like, you're pretty much the same age, right?
Yeah.
Ish? Yeah. So I'm like, well, this person's like pretty much my age. This is amazing. Then I'm like, it's a woman. Oh, come on, you probably get that a lot.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, this is awesome. And then several years later, I think it was a mutual Facebook friend, that's when we first started. I was on your streaming show, remember that? You had the tin hat, the tinfoil hat. And then that's where she got all her blackmail material. Why don't you tell us about that?
Oh, yeah. So you came on our live streaming. I did this live streaming thing for about 2 years where we would make inventions. Me and my buddy, George Sanger, the Fat Man, he's a video game musician, and we'd Skype these together and do this live invention show, and we'd show, I made a tinfoil hat that radiates radio waves or whatever. And so we asked Ben to come on and talk to us one time, and well, after everyone at my place took off to go eat, we're like, well, Ben, you can just stay on the live stream and keep talking to people. Well,
it's Sunday night, what else am I going to do? I don't watch The Simpsons.
Pitching back beers, and I forgot to stop recording.
Yeah, I was like, well, I have like 5 beers here. I will just stay on until I run out of beer. And then you had the live, because Wisconsin beer, Irish, do the math.
So the chat room is like
scrolling text, and there's like text to speech. So like the Stephen Hawking-esque voice, like, tell us about your work.
Yeah.
And so and I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, this is fun, and it's like, it's like one-way street. Then I don't know how it came up, but someone started asking me to do Battlestar Galactica.
Oh yeah, you're like,
Frack this, frack that.
Oh, I don't know, we almost fracking Cylons are on our ship. Wait, spoiler warning, I am a fracking Cylon.
And thanks.
So now it's recorded for posterity's sake. You can go to YouTube and look up beatboxing. Oh yeah, you started beatboxing too. Drunk beatboxing Ben.
I'd only had about 5 beers. That's not even close to being drunk for me.
It looked like you were drunk. I don't know.
Well, I was just acting like a drunk person.
Okay.
And then you tell us about your video you made where you made Ben Heck pinball.
Yeah, so we've had our pinball war, quote unquote.
Good segue.
And so to tease Ben a little bit, I took a Roy Clark, the Entertainer, probably the worst pinball machine on the planet, and I built some electronics for it to replace the original wiring harness. But as an added bonus, we made it the Ben Heck pinball. So it's Big Ben, the Entertainer, and it has rollover lanes like hot glue, Adobe Illustrator. I can't remember what else we put in there. Lots of Commodore 64. So you have to. The goal of the game is you have to like collect up all your tools like hot glue, and then you have to strike a target to pick which system. And then there's another set of targets, which is what are you going to do to it? Make it portable, cool it down, or we just stole stuff from your show.
Yeah, it was funny because we had this pinball war going on, and we had to fan the flames. And I guess we could talk about that real quick. So what was it? Well, you have some pretty, how do I put this, tenacious Twitter followers. What I always picture them is, they're like these pugilists, and they're like, you soiled Jerry's armor. How about you? That's what I get from them. I don't know if they're British or not. So we noticed this, and then we're
like, we're going to burn Ben Heck's house down if you tell us.
Yeah, I mean, what's with that? So anyway, what we decided to do was to be even meaner to each other on Twitter, just to get them riled up. and it's funny. So then what we did at the Ben Heck show, which, I guess I'm sure some of you are familiar with, and we decided to have a Pinball Wars episode because Jeri's been working on her As Seen on TV pinball machine since Billy Mays' birth in 1950. And I believe you're going to have it done by the time his grandkids graduate college. Is that the idea?
Perhaps, if they make it that far.
Anyway, so you were working on the machine, so we decided to kind of, well, I had to admit, part of my reason was to prod you along to
finish it finally? Well, I'm working on my own time schedule. I mean, you get paid.
Like in dog years or light years, or what do you mean?
Well, I'm okay with projects that take a long time. Yeah, I know that doesn't.
Yeah, because I have this thing where I stare daggers of death at projects, and I'm like, I will finish this. I will get lost pinball flipping for the show. I'm totally exhausted. But I guess maybe tell us about that and any other machines that you can tell us about.
Yeah, well, the As Seen on TV, I've done a couple.
You haven't touched your water.
Oh, my goodness.
Did you know that you're made of water and you need to drink it?
Okay, so I did my first pinball.
Wait a minute. Where did roller derby work into all your history?
Oh, a couple years ago, I just had a midlife crisis or a pre-midlife crisis, and I wanted to go beat people up. So I got into roller derby and did that for 2.5 years.
So which position were you?
I did jamming mostly. Yeah, but I did do blocking. I found that I could flip the bigger girls over by catching them under their elbow to get really low and get under your shoulder under them, and you stand up real quick and they'll topple over.
So you use their weight against them?
Yeah, and they don't get up very fast. So. You
can apply that physics to your pinball machine.
Actually, it was kind of funny. The first time I ever did a jam, I looked through the rules and I couldn't see anything in there that said that the jammer.
Wait, there's rules?
Yeah, there are rules. You're not supposed to.
I only watched the movie Whip It once, so I don't know.
Terrible movie. Anyway.
Yeah, it was Dirty Dancing on roller skates. I swear to God, there's a scene where she should have just been carrying a watermelon because the plot was exactly the same. And then at the end, her mother's like, "You look great up there, kid. When I'm wrong, I say I'm wrong." Dirty Dancing.
Anyway, I caused this big drama when I looked at the rules and it didn't say that I couldn't, as a jammer, couldn't hit people. So the very first jam that I did, I took 2 steps off the line and hit the other jammer and knocked her flat on her ass and took off, and the other team's going to the referee what?
Did they do an instant replay where it's like,
I think I have it on film somewhere. Cool. Anyway, back to pinball before we get too far.
Oh, yeah.
So, my first pinball I made when I was 14 or so. I made it on a piece of plywood, and I used a calculator to keep score. I put switches all over the playfield and hooked the equal sign on the calculator. And I would preload the calculator with 1 + 1, and when the ball would strike the switch, it would hit equal, and it would just index the score. And actually, I'd working solenoids too. I got some old relays and converted them to kind of give a little kick on the slingshots. And then in the 90s, I made I destroyed a black belt by Bally. It's really tragic. I didn't know they were so rare. I sanded the playfield down and painted it blue. I was going to make this nerd-themed pinball with circuit board kind of look to it. And I used a Commodore 64, and I made a driver board that drove the solenoids and the lamps and got it all flipping and going. But then my computer stores failed, so I crunched up the case of it, the cabinet, and got rid of it.
It's gone?
I still have the playfield.
You should bring it back, and people will probably pay good money for that. But that's a good segue. I know there's a lot of great homebrew pinball here at the show. It seems like it's catching on. So look, Jeri did it, and now look how good she is. So just if you want to do it, just get into it, get started, and go ahead and email us and ask us all sorts of questions, or maybe 1 question per email, reasonable time frame. But yeah, just the main thing is to just get out there and do it. Fire up your saws, because you're not going to get anything done by not starting. So, and it's not rocket science, right? What did you say once? You had that great quote about the couch?
Well, people think it's magical that I do so much, and I think the only difference between me and some other people is I just get off the couch at night and just do stuff, where people are stuck watching Lost.
I have, we have a team, a Battlefield Bat Company 2 on PC. I think I have 270 hours on it, and I still do this. I don't know.
How do you, well,
I don't sleep.
oh, okay. Meth habit or something? Is that how it works?
I got Dog the Bounty Hunter told me to kick meth after I ran to Mexico, after I didn't complete a chip in China or something.
Oh, yeah, I gotcha.
Okay, back to pinball. Let's see what we're doing here. We have 1 hour, right?
Oh,
Oh, we're all right.
oh, okay. There's one thing I want to say about doing projects, and I know you disagree, is do a project to the point where you feel satisfied with. It's okay not to finish, in my opinion. You know, like this black belt pinball that I trashed. I feel very good that I got the solenoids and the lamps working, and that was fine. I was very pleased at that point.
Well, the important thing is to learn things, because you don't learn by succeeding, and when you get into this stuff, you're certainly going to fail far more than you succeed. But yeah, that'll get you started. So I guess what I would take from that is don't be afraid of failure and just give it a whirl. And yeah.
Yeah, and
but
on
we
this
do kind
new
of
one-
disagree on that.
Yeah, on this newer one, I got to go farther. I got to get it past flipping and blinking, because I already did that with black belts. So
Right. So it's like it's a progression that you have to do.
yeah, so one of my pinballs that I'm working on right now, I'm doing it with a couple friends. The one I'm doing personally is As Seen on TV. It's all these late night infomercial things that you might find, like the slap chop.
Okay, Billy Mays impression, go.
Bam! Oh, Coke habit. Dead. Too soon?
Too soon?
Not soon enough.
So I made a slap chop pop bumper based off Dennis Nordman's jumper bumper. So it has little pachinko balls on the top of it, and I kind of fabricated it so it looks like a handle. When the ball goes up in the pop bumpers, these little pachinko balls bounce around in this little chamber, and it looks like the ball's getting diced up. And a little TV that has a Pico projector.
Fresh food that you can eat for your family at home. Coke habit.
I'm gonna have to
Still too
license.
soon?
I need to license that music. There where they auto-tuned that commercial. Anyways,
You have a little TV.
I have a little TV that the screen flips up. It's got acrylic that's kind of hazed up, and then a Pico projector that shines on it from the back, and the ball can pass through the screen. It looks really cool when the ball passes through because it casts a shadow, and as the ball rolls away, the shadow gets really big. I have a lazy boy on it where the ball gets diverted down a ramp and sits on the lazy boy. So our thoughts is that's going to be like the guy comes and he sits down and he's watching the TV, and then the wife comes in as you hitting the ball against the chair and like, honey, go take the garbage out, and you'd be like, ah, God damn it. So
Watching my programs.
yeah, so we have a lot.
Lost for 10 hours, like I apparently do, according to Jeri.
Anyway, we have a lot of ideas. So I have my friend Tanyo. He's helping do all the programming. He's a game designer, and so a combination of all these different pinball play fields. Hopefully, we'll get a system and we'll get enough of a framework going that we can get one of them done.
Yeah. Okay, I guess I could talk about my pinball. So in 2005, or 05, as I like to say, I think I was in the kitchen, and I was like, I should build a pinball machine. Right? That was my thought process. I don't really have a pinball history like Jeri does. You know, I'm not like a pinball wizard or anything. But I find it interesting, like the mechanics of it, and I always play them over the years. And I remember the first time I played a dot matrix display game. It was at the University of Platteville in the student area, and it was Batman. And I thought it was so cool how I liked how the ball represented things. It was kind of I don't know. I just found it interesting. It was Batman. I remember it was 50 cents, which was like $1,000 in 1992. And you put the quarter in, and it'd be like, "Who are you? I'm Batman." And I'm like, "This is awesome!" And then that was Data East, right? And I know it wasn't the first DMD game, but it was the first one I saw. Dot matrix display. Checkpoint was the first, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And so many years later, I was building a Neo Geo cabinet actually because I'm a Neo Geo fan as well. And I was like, okay, well, I'm doing this, but the next thing I should do is a pinball machine. Because my reason for doing it was because I knew it would be astronomically difficult, right?
It's like the ultimate nerd toy, even just owning a pinball machine. You get a little bit of everything, electronics, art, you get some gameplay in there. It's just super cool.
Right, and there's all sorts of, like, you have a game on your phone or whatever, it's the programming and art and sound, but this is everything, which makes it harder. So I started drawing things in 2005, and for some reason, anyone who has seen it, I wired the LED matrix by hand. It was like when your aunt...
For the display.
For the display. It's 64 by 8, so that's 512 LEDs. And there's shift registers behind them because the matrix scene, I think I bought the cheapest LEDs I could, so they're not very bright. So if I multiplex them, they're too dim. So I put shift registers on every row. So, like when your aunt makes a quilt for 5 years, for about 2 years I just would buy some LEDs, wire it up, continue it.
That's insane.
You didn't know that?
No, I knew that, but that's still insane.
It was kind of therapy. Like things you can do without thinking about it, like mowing the lawn or washing dishes,
Just having to matrix some LEDs.
Yeah, it's like this drone, like brainless thing to do, right? So, but then in 2009 or '09, I was like, you know what? I got to get this thing finished.
Wait, that means I have like 4 years to get mine done. So you can't.
Look what I've done.
You've revealed that I have more time.
But I did probably about 90% of the work in the last year of it. And I'm self-employed, which does not mean unemployed. Some people seem to think. You ever get that? You probably don't, because... No?
No, I don't.
Maybe it's a... All right, anyway.
Ben, you look like a bum. Are you unemployed?
Yeah, I got my hair cut like, 6 months ago? Not that bad. Anyway, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a month off and just... I actually used to make these little remote control fighting robots. It was kind of fun, and I put a basic stamp in one years ago. So I'm like, I'll continue on the propeller. And I'm not much of a programmer, so I didn't find the propeller language. Does that make sense? I don't know how to program C, so I didn't think the language was that stupid, right?
What? There's nothing wrong with basic.
Right. So anyway, I was like, okay, I'll get that, and I was like, okay, I'm going to learn how to do this high-level language, and I'm just going to make it work. So I got some driver boards, and then I basically spent, not this last winter, but the winter before, working on it. And then my December was a little slow, so I was able to get more done, and then I got it done in time for the show. And it worked out pretty well. It had sound and graphics and stuff. And I guess my big thing is my design background. I was able to make it look good. And I know some people, Jeri for instance, aren't fans of the Photoshop technique necessarily, but it's not the tools, it's the person. Like you could have Leonardo da Vinci, Caprio, or some guy on the street, and who's going to paint the Last Supper? It's the paintbrush. It's the same paintbrush.
I really like some of the things that you did on that, like the lady on the playfield extends up onto the
with perspective.
Yeah, onto the apron area
And we had to put Brady Daniels on there because pinballs have to have a certain degree of sexualization, right? Because especially like the ones in the '70s, it was ridiculous, but it was awesome. And then I wanted to make another one. So my friend Jason Jones, who's on my podcast and shows up in the show sometime, he's like, okay, well, I'll buy you the parts to make I'd like a Lost themed pinball machine, the TV show. And then you can try out your new system. So I can make this, we can't sell a Lost machine without a license, but we can make it and try out the new system. And then after that, I want to make a Tesla versus Edison steampunk 1800s machine.
Are you going to shock people? Everyone's asking.
I think we should. And the premise is, the whole premise? We have enough time, don't we? Yeah. Oh yeah, we're doing fine. The premise is Charles Babbage, who created the analytical engine, or designed the analytical engine. He faked his own death and used the insurance money to finish the analytical engine because Scotland Yard wants to use it to determine the identity of Jack the Ripper, but it needs a power source. So they turn to the Yanks. Tesla or Edison, who can power the machines? You have to battle to get the contract.
AC.
Yes, the war of the currents. And so the match will be, you'll see some famous person from history, like Queen Victoria, and then the machine would like go cycle through to find out who Jack the Ripper is. And if that matches, that's your match. I came up with that.
Are you going to be electrocuting animals just like they did back in the early days?
So the first toy I came up with, if you watch the video in Edison, well, it was actually like 1912 when it happened, but they had an elephant. An elephant went around killing people at Coney Island, so they killed it. It was called Topsy, isn't the name of the elephant? And you can go on YouTube and see the video, but it just kind of like falls over, right? And there's some smoke. So we're going to have like a Disney anthropomorphic elephant in like a little wooden electric chair.
Yes. Yes.
And the trunk is going to be bolted up too, right? Because it's right, and it's got a helmet, but it's not going to be
curly wires too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But and the actual elephant was a female. This one's going to be male, and it's going to be like, I didn't do it. It was some donkey. I'm innocent. And your Tesla or Edison, so two players you fight. So one's trying to bring the current up enough to kill it, and the other one's trying to save it.
So the two players are fighting to save the elephant?
No. If you're Edison, you're trying to kill it. If you're Tesla, you're trying to save it. And you battle. And I'm thinking another thing would be cool. Tesla claimed he could cleave the Earth in two using resonance. So there should be a part like, I shall cleave the Earth in twain! And then the cabinet shakes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
If you have any ideas, just let me know. But we want to make it like steampunk, hot gluing things to your hat. I'm not really a huge fan, but I think it'd be cool to get that aesthetic, Gauges, brass, bolts.
Yeah.
Oh, the ghost of Ada Lovelace is going to be in it. Like the spectrum from beyond the grave. Do you have any other cool pinball ideas you've been tossing around?
I'm pretty excited about the electronics that I've been developing. So there's a lot of problems in pinball machines, the current machines. There's failure modes that cause them to burn up the coils. The coils inside that actuate things, most of them aren't designed to have 100% duty cycles, so they need to be shut off after a short pulse that they give. And if like a transistor shorts out, then or the CPU crashes, you can stick a coil on and it'll melt the coils down and smoke boils out. You know about that.
Why don't you tell the story?
Oh yeah, well, we were...
I can't be embarrassed.
Ben thinks I sabotaged him when I came over to his shop to help out a little bit. He kind of put a diode in backwards and it blew a transistor out. And then the next time he flipped the wires around on the coil and put a new diode in to get it to hook it up correctly, turn the machine on. Well, it stuck the coil on, and then a few minutes later, this really nice mist of smoke started. It was a cool effect. I mean, it was coming out of that trap door.
Yeah, and it was a lost machine, so it was like a free smoke monster mode. It was great. And then then I blamed Jeri for it. Then we went to Melio's.
And then everything was okay.
Yeah, once we had the subs. Melio's versus Subway. I mean, this is like the big battle.
Yeah, we spent like 20 minutes. He was debating Jones was debating whether it was too crunchy of lettuce or not.
Crunchy lettuce? How do you even determine such a thing? It's like, I just bit through that bread, meat, cheese, and other things, but I could identify the texture of the lettuce apparently because I have bionic teeth.
I don't know.
I don't even understand
This debate's
that.
going to go on forever, I guess.
Actually, the other debate that I have that came up was tipping hotel staff. Maybe this isn't a good thing to talk about since we're at a hotel.
What?
Tipping hotel staff.
Perfect time to do it.
What are you talking about?
Okay, that's another debate. The thought is with the Tesla machine, make something that's like a generic license so we can, make a couple of them and sell them. And it's not really, for me, it's not about making a bunch of money, although I wouldn't do it for a loss. It's just about making something you can sell so you can make a few more.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll buy one.
Cool. Really? It's going to be like $1 million.
Oh, maybe not.
Well, you're probably money back, so it's all right.
Yeah, right.
So you may make a Commodore 128 chip and you'll be rolling in dough.
Oh yeah, everyone wants the
Amiga. What about the Amiga?
I did. I did an Amiga on a chip for the toy company right after the Commodore 64. I had it working on my base I was using a 68K out of an Amiga 500. Took it to them, presented it to them, we discussed it all, and it ended up, they canceled the project because Amiga games usually come on an entire floppy or two. So it was the cost of the memory to put into the joystick that killed the project. It was kind of sad. But now there's a company in here selling an Amiga on an FPGA. So you can get it for $140, and it's pretty cool.
And so you say you haven't met Kiki Stockhammer in person, or you saw her in the hallway once?
Oh yeah, I worked at New Tech. Yeah, that's if anyone remembers the video toaster from the Amiga. Yeah.
I got a few fans out there.
So I went, 2 years ago I worked with New Tech for a year on their new system, and Kiki, which was their spokesperson, very attractive, and did these special effects for them, like the Kiki wipe, where she twisted her legs around on the screen and it would do this really porn-style, 80s transition. Yeah. Anyway, every time people found out that I worked at New Tech, they're like, "Did you know Kiki?" And I'm like, "Well, I saw her once in the hall, but I never went up and talked to her." Sorry, guys.
My favorite was the one where she was standing there, and it was like we're looking through the window, and she's like, would see you, and then she'd pull on the curtain. Oh, the video toaster was awesome.
Oh, wow.
Okay, well, I think that pretty much brings us up to date, so I guess we could answer questions, unless there's anything you'd like to add.
No.
Except for the fact, maybe concede that you're going to lose the pinball war again, maybe?
Define lose.
Be like 3 machines behind me?
Gosh. No, anyone can make any Stern employees? Anyone can make a Stern machine. Mine are going to be Williams quality.
Oh, sure. But Williams finished their machines. I just flipped the switch to mean. Yeah, okay, trash talk aside, I guess we have about, 10 or 15 minutes, to answer any questions, and go nuts.
I can yell from here.
Yeah.
I've been curious since last year, and I haven't had a chance to ask you, and it seems like a good place. Where did the idea for Bill Paxton come from? Like, why Bill Paxton?